Hi, I'm Chris Hansen from Karate Unity. I travel, train, and teach all over the world. I cross-train with others because I believe that no style is the best, as you can always learn and improve on something. It's important to embrace similarities and learn from our differences. I also speak with amazing people to gain insight into the martial arts. My next guest follows in the spirit of Bruce Lee. May I present to you Sifu Burton Richardson. With over 40 years of cross-training and teaching Jun Fan Gung Fu to Cali, Silat, and beyond, Sifu Richardson has embarked on a remarkable journey, mastering multiple arts and sharing his functional expertise with the world. Get ready for a deep dive into a true master. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris Hansen from Karate Unity. Our podcast focuses on cross-training in other arts and combat sports to make your base art better. We also have instructional videos and how-tos. And so we're back again with a very special edition with one of my childhood mentors through books and online, world-renowned coach to famous MMA athletes in the UFC, avid cross-trainer in various styles, author of several martial arts books. His focus is on functional self-defense. He's a student of Bruce Lee student, Danny Inosantos, a filmmaker as well, and the list goes on. The one, the only, Burton Richardson. Thank you for coming, brother.
That is a lot to live up to.
And you're doing it. But thanks for coming. Please introduce yourself pleasure. And tell us about yourself.
Oh, well, my name is Burton Richardson, and I've been very, very fortunate to be able to train since I was 17 is when I actually started training. And Chris had asked me to do a little bit of a brief history. So basically, as a very young kid, my favorite TV show was The Green Hornet.
Yes.
And I didn't know it was Bruce Lee as Kato, but I remember so vividly just loving that show. So I was interested in martial arts. There's also a photo of me when I'm probably about 6 years old-ish, and I have a plastic samurai sword in my hand. So, you know, I had the disease since I was very young. When I was about 9 years old, I had a bad incident happen where I was walking home from Little League by myself, and make a long story short, there was an abduction situation happened. It was, quote, probably only an hour or so, but it was really horrific, a very large male, and it was just horrible. And so the base of everything I do, and I think part of my love for martial arts is that I love martial arts, but also an obsession with martial arts, is basically I don't want myself and I don't want any of my students to ever be in that situation where they feel absolutely helpless while their life is being threatened constantly. And I mean, I just was totally helpless. And that's what I'm trying to overcome for people. And that is why I'm so adamant about functional training, to make sure we do it. So if something like that or some other life-threatening event happens, we don't just have knowledge, but we actually are prepared. We have the skill to deal with those sort of situations.
Did this situation happen when you were in California or Hawaii?
Yes, in California, yes. So I was, 9 years old. So I was born and raised in the Los Angeles area, Carson, California. And just so happened, when Guru Dan Inosanto and Sifu Richard Bastillo opened a school after Bruce Lee passed away, they opened it in Torrance, California. It was a little more than a mile from the house I grew up in. So people would save for years to be able to fly out and train at the academy, the original Filipino Kali Academy, Jun Fan Gung Fu Academy. You know, they'd save for years so they could come out and train for 10 days or so. And it was a mile and a half from the house I grew up in. So very grateful that I was right there and able to take advantage of that starting at the age of 17.
17, wow, that is young.
Yes.
What drew you?
Now
what drew
it feels
you to
really
JKD?
young.
Yeah, that is young. I started around the same time, around I'd say 10 or 11, give or take 6 years with respect to you. Why JKD?
You know, I went to a friend took me to the academy to look, and I must say, when I was maybe a little after 9, maybe 10 years old, I was walking by an auditorium, a gymnasium at a local park, and I heard this sound, this "huh, huh, huh" sound, and here's this young guy. I peer into the auditorium, and there may be 50 adults lined up, white gis, standing in line, horse stance, going, huh, huh, throwing reverse punches, and it was
Nice.
just fascinating. I was mesmerized. So I was really interested in that, but I wasn't allowed to do it. Well, it just so happened when I graduated from high school, my dad said, "Yeah, go ahead and do that because it'll probably be good for your baseball." Also, I was a baseball player, and uh, I went to the academy. It was close by and such, but also I must say, at that time, I really liked the feel of it. You know, people were. It was very casual environment. It was like baseball. It was a very athletic environment, and it just felt like athletic training to me. But they could have been in uniforms and all. I still would have wanted to do it, and it was just amazing. And then I just say, the first class I watched there, Grudan's teaching, and they have the guys and the girls. They're going through and they're doing focus mitt work, and then they're doing kickboxing. And I see a guy get a bloody nose right in front of me. And then they picked up the weapons and started moving the weapons, and it was just like that was it. It's all
Gotcha.
over.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's amazing. It's one of those things that there's something that clicks with you right away when you walk into a martial art gym, I find. Yeah. And you've never stopped. So I think from what I understand, you've been in it for at least 40 years.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, gosh, what is it? Now it's 45. How about that? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
62. So yeah, 45 years of martial arts training. And it's a cliche. It sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, I feel like I'm at the beginning because I'm training so much. Gosh, there's just so much to learn and deeper understanding of the same thing. I want to make sure karate,
Yes.
some people will go, they only have a few techniques and this and that and all. But, it is about honing those techniques. You take someone like Lyoto Machida, who clearly, when he was fighting in the UFC, his sense of distance and his stance and his ability to gauge the distance and suddenly cover distance and move in, that was all from his lifetime of karate training.
Shotokan.
It's all the martial arts, if you train it well, that's the key thing. If you train it well, has just great application. So I love it. I feel I have so far to go on. It's just a lifelong adventure.
I find I've spoken to so many OGs in the game like yourself, and that seems to be the general consensus. When you've trained in arts and sports for so long, it's an infinity game.
Good. Oh, nicely put. Infinity game.
Yeah.
Because, like alluded to, it's not just learning. So if you have a curriculum and you just study, you memorize the curriculum and you learn how to do the whole curriculum, that's just memorization. What the art is, I believe, is the application and the better understanding. And how can I better use this one technique? Can I use one technique in 50 different ways? That is when you really are understanding the technique. How do you find it out of a different flow? How do you get to the position to use your technique? And that's a lifetime right there. Just that. It's like a painter trying to paint just a little bit better, little bit better every day.
That's the art piece.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So I've from what I knew of you and also from the research that I've done, so JKD, BJJ, Filipino martial arts, Silat, Savate, there's a list, like It's a long list, and I wrote down here. You remind me of Guru Eric Paulson. I'm sure you know who
Oh,
that
I know
gentleman is.
Eric very. Oh, we are great friends.
Yeah, he's
I,
coming on this channel too shortly. I'm just
oh, great.
working out some logistics with him. He's traveling a lot, so we're gonna try to nail something down by the end of August, hopefully.
Uh,
But
you'll have fun with
I
Eric.
yeah, it's gonna be great. I gravitate towards gentlemen like you because of the openness, and it's you don't look at martial arts for one thing, you look at it holistically. So like I'd like to talk to you about that. So um talk to me about your journey from JKD to BJJ to FMA, and strategically why those particular arts, and what did those arts do for you?
Hmm.
And what is your favorite kind of practice, and just why all those kind of arts? If you can talk about that.
So, yeah, very good question. I have a love for improvement, personal development, and I know no one art has it all. For example, there's a
Yes.
great saying in the Burmese art of Bando. It
Bondo.
says,
Yeah.
"No nation has a monopoly on the sunlight." Right? The sun shines on all the nations, so there's not
Love
one
that.
that says, "Oh, we have it." Because what happens, this is what I've observed in martial arts, is you have a particular style, and people in that style, and a lot of times the head instructor and all, will say, all arts are good. And then when you're around a little longer, you find out it's all arts are good, but it's clear we're better.
We're better.
Then it
Okay.
becomes, well, those other arts are really not that good. And we're really, really good. And then it becomes, they're no good at all. And we have all the information. If you want to actually know it, we're the ones to come to. That's just kind of a human process, I think, that's natural. But if we are in there looking for the truth, which to me is the highest, okay, our highest goal is to look for the truth in the martial arts. And a good way to look for truth, because we talk about fighting functionality, is why don't you just go and spar with some
Yes.
people from some different arts? And guess
Yes.
what? You will find out no one has a monopoly on the truth, right?
Yep.
Because many a stand-up fighter has been really shocked at how easy it was for a jiu-jitsu or wrestler to take him down.
Yep.
Many a jiu-jitsu guy has been shocked at how hard it is to enter on a guy who knows how to move and strike.
Yep.
That's the truth too.
Yep.
I had a long time ago here in Hawaii. I mean, when I say long time ago, we're talking late 90s. He was training very hard Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but he also had fought dog brother stick fighting. He
Mhm.
also had a JKD background in Thai boxing. And he told me, he goes, these guys that I'm training with, they are so sure that they can just take anybody down, that it's going to go to the ground. They are so sure. And so what he did is he brought boxing gloves one day and said, try to take me down. Put the boxing gloves on the other guys. Nobody could take him down. So now they're getting pummeled in the face because they don't have any stand-up. So the idea is probably a good idea to get those experiences so we know the truth, keeps us humble because we know the truth is anybody can get punched, anybody can get taken down. And then we can enjoy that training process to go forward. So you asked me why JKD and Jiu-Jitsu and this and that.
Yeah. And in particular, Savate too. I mean, I noticed there's a pattern among a lot of JKD stylists, and they throw in Savate. I mean, I've trained it, so I kind of know my answer, but and I love it. But I want to know your take on that.
Well, first off,
Yeah.
my first exposure to Savate was Bruce Lee's Tao of Jeet Kune Do. There
Oh.
are drawings of Savate, and he named some of the kicks. So he was studying Savate. And if you look at the way he did certain kicks, Bruce Lee himself, and we're not talking about movies, we're talking about the fighting aspect. It's clear there's a heavy Savate influence.
Yeah, his hands are out when he's doing his side kick, for example. His chassés are
right?
very long. Yeah.
Coup de pied bas, right?
Yes.
that they call oblique kick in JKD, but
Yeah.
a lot of influence there. Okay, and then I think why many people in the JKD world are interested in Savate is because they came through Guru Dan and Osanto. Somehow they have a connection.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Guru Dan, we had Salem Asli, who came to LA. This is so interesting. He came to LA from France. He wanted to learn JKD. Now, how much Savate do you think Salem had when he arrived in LA? I mean, what was his Savate background at that time? Zero.
Zero. Yeah.
He didn't train Savate.
Yeah.
You know who told him he should train Savate? Is Guru Dan.
Dan.
Yeah, he said,
Wow.
gosh, you should really look into Savate and all. Salem was a gymnast. He had a gymnastics background, so he had amazing control of his body.
Interesting.
And to make a long story short, Salem in LA learned Savate and then would go to France and test his way through the ranks. When it got to silver glove, he had the highest score of anybody ever to take the silver glove test.
That's amazing.
And he learned in Los Angeles, most of it. So the point being, it's a great art. And the idea that you use a shoe, because most people walking around here in Hawaii, not so much, but in most places you wear shoes or hard shoes, and it's use that tool. I had a good friend, he passed away recently, unfortunately, Daniel Doobie. And he was the first one to teach Savate in America, more on a, maybe somebody taught it in the backyard or something, but he really taught it in an open manner. And he taught the street Savate. He taught the new boxe française, but he also taught the street Savate.
Yeah.
And he told me one time, he goes, if I have a weapon, he's talking about his boot, why wouldn't I use it?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, yeah, exactly. So that's Savate. If we look at why Thai boxing, Guru Dan. Why Filipino martial arts, Guru Dan. He's the one who did it. And you're like, oh, this is phenomenal, especially the way he explains it and demonstrates it and all. Who started training in jiu-jitsu when he was 60 years old? Guru Dan. So many different Silat because of Guru Dan. He had the platform because he worked so hard teaching those seminars every weekend. A lot of people think that Guru Dan was out there teaching seminars every weekend to try to be wealthy or something. Far from the truth. Far from the truth. What they don't know is he was teaching seminars every weekend and adjusting everything to make sure nobody lost money. And then he actually, for a while, got divorced from his first wife. He had an academy in Marina Del Rey. That's the second place I trained with him. So Marina Del Rey. And he had a van. And you know what? He would teach the classes. Everybody would leave. He'd open up the garage door for that warehouse space, drive the van, and he'd sleep in his van for a while. That was how he was living. Yeah, he went out and taught seminars every weekend to expose the art. He wanted people to understand the beauty of the Filipino martial arts and what it had to offer, plus all these other arts, Silat and Thai boxing and all. So basically, the beginning of what I was training was mainly because of Guru Dan. I also trained boxing. There was a boxing gym in Carson, and so I went to that boxing gym, and later I went to Main Street Boxing Gym in LA, the War Zone and all this. But it was mainly through Guru Dan. That's how all the exposure. But then, of course, I wanted to use his idea, which he encouraged everybody to do, is go explore anything you can find. Find other teachers in Filipino martial arts. Find other Thai boxing teachers, whatever it is, Silat. Go find whatever you can find. So that led me to South Africa, where I trained Zulu stick fighting, which really, So I was doing a movie in Johannesburg, and it's an American movie shot down there. And then I was able to find a guy who did Zulu. Anyway, I went down to the Zulu village, and I was able to have an introduction, had a translator, and I did Zulu stick fighting for 7 or 10 days. Then I went back a few years later and to the same village and did more, and I made 4 trips ultimately training Zulu stick fighting. So it's stick fighting, shield and stick. It was a little bit of shield and axe, and then a little bit of shield and spear. There's just not a lot to the shield and spear, so I learned that as well. It's fascinating, and it's different from the Filipino martial arts because
I was just going to ask you. I was just going to ask you about that. What's your take on if you were to put them side by side? Like, what stands out to you?
Yeah, the main thing is because you have a shield in this hand, and so with the stick, it's a long stick, and you have a shield on your hand. And if you hit an angle 1, angle 2, a low shot, all you have to do is move the stick like this, and it blocks everything. So the whole thing in Zulu stick fighting is how do you get around that shield? So it becomes all progressive direct attack, drift shots. It's feinting. It's all really high level feinting. And they have the ball. It's a stick with a ball on the end of the stick.
Yes.
So you whip it around and it comes back in strange angles. It looks like doce pares.
Right.
Some of it. And it's really fascinating. And it's culturally, it's so important to their culture. I could go on for that for 3 hours. So
yeah,
but it's amazing. And so, jiu-jitsu I got into, then MMA, and
you're pretty up there with BJJ. I think you passed black belt. If I'm correct.
Yeah, I achieved my black belt in 2006, and I'm very, very, very fortunate to get to train with Egan Inoue. I started with Higan Machado, then one of Higan's students, Chris Howder, who's amazing.
Oh, Chris Howder, yes. SPG, I think I know him from SPG. I think Street Spots Gym.
He went and trained all of them. Yeah, and he has his own thing, combat base in Hermosa Beach, California. I think it's Hermosa, might be Redondo, but anyway, down there, where I had my first school. And then Egan Inoue, Ensign Inoue, who Egan was the first non-Brazilian to win a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championship. Then through him, I trained with Sharuta Verisimo, which is BJ Penn's coach, Barrett Yoshida, just a phenom, incredible. I got to coach him in 4 different ADCC Abu Dhabi World Championships.
Yeah.
And Marcelo Garcia, who now lives 10 minutes from me. So he was here yesterday. We're rolling here at the house yesterday. And I mean, just I know. That's why they call me Lucky Dog. Right? Yeah.
Wow.
I think my wife's up here in the office, and I think Lucky Dog, and they look at my wife. They're like, "Yeah, Lucky Dog." I'm very fortunate to have met my wife, and she's a great fighter too. And I have had so much good fortune in this whole thing. But the main idea on the cross training is just constantly try to make yourself better. And the key thing, I'm an instructor in Krav Maga. The key thing is it going to make you better? And let's pressure test it to see what works under resistance.
Yeah. I want to zone in a little bit about that before we get into the pressure testing. The whole cross training thing. You see, like I some of the pushback that I get as a karateka from karate organizations and things is it's not necessary because the style of karate is holistic. It's got all it addresses all the ranges, and it's not necessary to go outside and do that. But as an educator in the school system and as an instructor myself, that is a fallacy.
The fallacy. Wrong. It's a fallacy. This is the way I would put it. Is is karate holistic? Yeah, there are a lot of different things. Okay, so let's say you could train only karate, and that would be sufficient to protect yourself, to enjoy your training and have a long training career. Okay, right. But do you only want to eat Japanese food your whole life? Don't you want to try some Filipino food? Don't you want to have some Mexican every once in a while and this and that? It's just limiting. Sure, you can say, oh, I'm going to stay in here, but it's really limiting. So not to mention, why not borrow from the the 1,000 years of another culture developing things. So they immediately go, oh gosh, that's a much better way. I'm going to give you a quick insight or story I think is pertinent. So jiu-jitsu, okay, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the whole thing is you learn the technique, then you roll against a resisting opponent and see if you can actually do it. And they're trying to do things to you, and you find out where your weaknesses and your strengths are. And so that's what you do. But interestingly enough, there's a quote self-defense curriculum in jiu-jitsu that's been around for a long time where there is no resistance whatsoever. Like it's all hold the arm out,
static.
Got the knife, you go here and you block it, you put an Americana, a bent arm lock, you take the person down. And you ask any jiu-jitsu practitioner, have you ever seen in a competition someone do this lock standing? No.
Nope.
Why do you think you could do it with a knife? But here's the story. I happened to have my sticks with me. I was a blue belt. I was training, and there was a Brazilian guy from Brazil visiting. He's a purple belt, and he was really good. And so after class, he saw the sticks. He goes, "Oh wow!" And he spoke good English. He says, "Here, let me show you how to defend against that." I'm like, "Okay." I pick up the stick because I want to see what he's going to do, and I slowly put the stick out there, and he did one of the typical block, put an Americana on and take down. And I said, "Oh, okay, thank you." Then he stops. And this is what most people won't do. But because he was interested in fighting, this is where his mind went. Because if he was only interested in technique, that would have been enough. Yeah. But he goes, "What do you think of that technique?" And I go, "Well," and I said, I had the stick in my hand. I said, "Well, if someone knows a little bit how to use the stick, they're going to do something like this." And I started whipping the stick, right? Like this. And he goes, "Oh, that's a bad technique. That technique." And he comes up and he shakes my hand. "Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you." Yeah, because he was interested in knowing the truth from a fighting sense.
Yeah.
And something in his brain goes, "Hey, this guy has sticks. He might know something I don't." He learned in 30 seconds. Yeah. He changed his approach, which was beautiful.
I got goosebumps listening to this. I like this story.
Right? We should all do that.
Yeah. That's phenomenal, man. I find I'm blessed too. My journey is taking me now to Japanese jiu-jitsu. So I actually officially earned my white belt not too long ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And you get a black belt without getting your white belt.
I just find that group, so shout out to Rise MMA. They're a Japanese jiu-jitsu group here out of Toronto. Kelvin Chung is the coach, and he's just fostered such a growth mindset. So this story that you just told me about the sticks and the grappler guy, it's so cool to hear when you're among people who just want to grow. They just want to grow. When you do that, you break down barriers. You don't think about style anymore. You just think about objectives, right? So I love this story. I have your book here, and it's well used. I like to take care of the cover, so I put a cover on it. But it's this one right here, JKD Unlimited, and I love it. There's stand-up flows to you address long range, middle range, kicking range, trapping range, and grappling. You address all of the ranges. What stood out for me? So I just wrote some ideas down here. It's like what drew me to the book was how you suggested in the beginning to combine styles so that you can make whatever you are learning better. This appeals to the very nature of how I learn in particular, and it's the foundation of karate unity here and cross training to make your base art better, right? To me, it's just good learning. So I wanted to really briefly, if you can talk about, if you remember, I know this book was done in 1998. If you can talk about, some of the inspirations for writing this.
Well, what happened was I actually wrote that in 94 or something like this. And it just took a long time to get published because there was some sort of thing. The paper prices went through the roof or something for a while. So, but the point being that the reason I did it was because people had seen my JKD Unlimited video series, the first JKD Concepts video series I put out, and it was very popular. And I was writing for Inside Kung Fu and magazine, and people were enjoying it. And so, yeah, I approached the publisher, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And I just wanted to put some ideas out, just what you're talking about, mainly the idea of cross training.
Yes.
We didn't really call it cross training back then, but that was the idea of cross training. And the reason being, just like you said, it's helps you grow. It gets rid of, also, if we stay in our own box, we not only do we limit our own growth, but then we start getting critical, prejudicial of other styles, right? Like, oh, that there, no, right. But we've never tried them.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
go try and see? How about actually see what's going to help you improve? How about help your students improve? So it's just a great way. And like you say, you stop just defending your style, right?
Yes.
I don't care what the style is, from regardless of where it is. There are styles from JKD to karate to Kali to, I mean, any place you go where basically the people get in there. And this is my thought, is that you take someone interested in martial arts, good chance they have sort of a low self-esteem or self-esteem problems, confidence problems. You start training martial arts, and guess what? They build up their confidence through that martial art. And then someone comes along and says, "Hey, your martial art, it's not complete. You might want to look at something else." And that becomes an attack on their confidence, that
Right.
and their self-esteem. It's like, "Oh, no, forget that. I'm so I think subconsciously, a lot of times they don't want to ruin the self-esteem or confidence they built, because they might have an inkling that, gosh, if I go over there, maybe I don't know everything. Well, guess what? You don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. But it's just so, as you know, like you said, to be in a group of growth-minded individuals, instead of being in this thing where we just have to protect what we have and let's not look over there. And if you go and train with somebody else, you get kicked out of the school. And that is just insecurity. That is massive insecurity. And we want martial arts to build us up so we're totally secure. And we don't, if my student asks me, say they're doing jujitsu with me, and they say, "Hey, there's a jujitsu guy, 2 miles away. I'd like to go train at their school." You know what I'm going to say? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I do. I have a lot of my students train at other places as well. I think, well, here's my basic thought as a martial arts teacher. Here's my basic theory or guideline. Do what's best for the student. That's it. Do what's best for the student. If that means someone comes to me and says, "I want to enter MMA competitions. That's what I want to do. I want to fight MMA." At this point, I would say, "Okay, I'm going to send you to a different school, because that's not the focus, and it's not, you need more training that specifically than what we are offering."
Yeah.
And so I will send them someplace else, because I'm going to do what's best for them, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, just do class. That's going to prepare you," or whatever it is. I mean, just do what's best for the student. And you know what I've found over the decades is, when you do that, one, you're free, right? You can sleep at night. You don't have anything in the back of your mind thinking that you didn't do the right thing. And then the other thing is, people appreciate it. And they do go away, and then they come back, or they suggest somebody else that fit exactly in your school. So to me, it's just nothing better than just being honest and doing what's best for the student.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just thinking, as you were saying this, of the timing issue, though. Like, I can only speak from my experience. I put in 26 years uninterrupted in traditional martial arts, so karate and kempo. But then I started when I was 10, and I'll be 56 in December. So, but then after those 26 years, I some incidents happened. I cross-trained with some people, and I had issues with boxers. I had trouble dealing with them, and with all kinds of problems there, and grapplers too. And so I decided to learn those things. But I think if I had done that a little bit too early, I wouldn't have appreciated it now. So my question is, at what point, you know, do you start learning different things?
That's really such a good question. And I don't have a great answer to that because I trained for a long time where we didn't do much sparring. We did some sparring, but that wasn't the emphasis. And then when I went and started sparring hard and I competed in different things, and I found out I was not performing well in a competition setting where it's all out, full speed, full power. I wasn't performing well. And that made me relook at how I was doing things, what I was emphasizing, because I'll tell you, Guru Dan told me from the beginning what to do, but I just wasn't doing it. But then that's led me to MMA and everything else. But yeah, you know, it's a tough question because I think they're just different ways to get there. Like in MMA, it used to be early MMA, you'd have someone like Randy Couture, who I was so happy, so fortunate I've gotten to train with him for a long time. Randy, U.S. national Greco-Roman wrestling team for 10 years. He made the team 10 years in a row.
Wow.
He goes into MMA and he's wrestling based. He had a little boxing too, but he was such a good wrestler. He could clinch up, beat people up in the clinch, take them down, you know, and all that. Then you had like Machida, who's the karate background was so strong that he could use it. And then he had jiu-jitsu also that he could work on the ground and all that. But nowadays, people training for MMA tend to train everything together at the same time. And they're still getting really good results. Like they don't have any holes. So, gosh, you know, I have to tell you, I don't have a good answer for that because I know both ways work.
You're right. I think it depends on the athlete, though. I mean, if like a lot of these camps, like and I'm speaking to the choir here. I know you're familiar with this too, but I've been to some pretty cool camps. I don't know if you heard of Tritac Martial Arts in Connecticut. Coach Matt Briers, he has a relatively big channel too. But anyway, he's got a beautiful gym there. Great bunch of athletes, and like you said, he has like workshops. So he'll have like boxing workshop, clinch workshop, and he'll put all his athletes through various different kinds of training, and that's all they know. They know how to separate all these things and merge them together, and he just builds them. So as they're exposed to all these things, whatever they suck at, they'll just spend more time on it, and it'll just keep going through that process. So it works.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Then on the reverse side of that, let's go back to JKD. Yeah. Right. You can get so good at a particular area that's very narrowly defined. Yeah. That you understand the art or fighting on such a high level. When you go in and you add other things in, you already have all the tactics in the game. You understand how to manipulate people. So I'm talking about Bruce Lee adding fencing. Now, who adds principles from fencing into an empty hand art? Well, Bruce Lee. Yeah. And because his brother was a fencing champion, an épée champion of Hong Kong, and he trained in fencing in LA. Guru Dan would go with him. And he learned these principles and then took those principles and it made all his empty hand, and he changed the way he was doing his empty hand as well. But it made it so much better. So I'm saying someone that does karate for a long time, and I would say somebody that's sparring a lot too, because if you don't spar, you know, it's just hard it's just another level of dealing with a human being that is fighting back against you. Yeah. But if you do that and you get really deep, I think you can transfer and you'll learn, for example, groundwork, although it'll be uncomfortable and you'll have the mentality of how to train. I'll give you an example on that. When I started jiu-jitsu, it'd only been, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months, 6 months. And I think I have the record. I'm not going to brag, but I think I have the record for being the worst jiu-jitsu student ever, the least aptitude. like totally the least. I just had no aptitude for the ground. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to move. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just,
Hmm.
but Higan Machado comes by one day while I'm rolling, and he stops us. When I say rolling, I'm getting murdered. And he says to me, he goes, you keep training and you can be really good one day.
Yep.
And I'm like, what is he talking about? I'm the worst guy in the gym, and I'm just really bad at this. And then he says, he could see the confusion in my face. He goes, because you know how to train. You train relaxed. You know how to actually train.
Yeah.
Huh. And then as the
Yeah.
years went on, I much later I understood that the guys that are always tense and this and that, they only go to a certain level. They
Yeah.
have success earlier, but they rely on strength and tension and all, where that is not going to last, because you get somebody stronger and it's just none of it works.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how if you do pick one art, a lot of the things you learn, not just physical technique, but the mental attributes, can be taken over to another art it's very different.
Yeah, lots of transferable skills, for sure. I mean, as we spoke in our pre-chat before we recorded, I'm on the Japanese jiu-jitsu journey now, and
Yeah, awesome.
my testing is yellow belt testing is scheduled for October. But so I'm putting in the time, man, on the mat, and
Awesome.
my coach said the same thing. He says, "Look, man," he goes, "I can't wait to see you evolve." And he says, and you will. He says, you might not think it, but you will, clearly, because you've trained before.
Mm,
That's it. You've trained. So you're going to see a lot of the things in karate. You're going to see it in jiu-jitsu. Like, you'll just see it on the floor, and you'll find ways. So like, I love to hear these things. I want to get into some juicy stuff, but before we do, I just wanted to know, have you met Bruce before?
no, I was too young.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
he passed away when I was, what was I, 11 years old. So
Yeah.
I never met him. Like I said, I love the Green Hornet, but that was the closest I got physically to him.
Yeah. Everybody says he was ahead of his time, and I mean, I would like to think so. My ideas is simply because, he had an idea for sports science. He would train functionally, and he mixed in things that just made sense. So I don't want to take away your thunder here, but was he really ahead of his time? What's your take on that?
Well, let's look at MMA. So
Yeah.
MMA started, people were, you know, as far as a combat sport goes, it doesn't get much more realistic than MMA. We know there are targets you can't hit and all that. Okay, the point being that at the beginning of MMA, there were no oblique kicks.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee was doing oblique kicks all, way back when, very effectively. And when we would spar at the Inosanto Academy or wherever, oblique kick came in a lot. No oblique kicks. There were no low side kicks, G-Tech, that Bruce Lee used all the time. There was no trapping. On the ground, you might have some trapping, but standing, no trapping.
Yeah.
So all these years later, it's now, gosh, 20 years later? No, 30 years later, MMA, the oblique kick is used.
Yeah.
The low side kick is used by some people.
That's right.
And the trapping is starting. Little by little, more people will add a little trap and come in. Unmatched leads, grab the lead hand wrist, throw the cross, fake hook, trap, throw across.
Yeah.
It's starting to happen. He was so far ahead of his time. And the thing is, there are a lot of things that he did that have not shown up. And when MMA guys get an understanding of this, it's going to elevate the art again. So all you have to do is, I did I went back and looked at JKD for Bruce Lee's approach again, maybe about 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, actually. And I, I'm just going to look at it again, like I don't know martial arts, or I've never trained in that, and just look at it with new eyes. I went in, and I must say, I was just astounded. How did he come up with this at such a young age?
Yeah,
How did he develop this approach? I mean, it's just
phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
Yeah. Shout out to Joey De Los Rios. He's the owner and founder of Combat Arts Academy in Mississauga, Ontario. He's a big JKD guy. I don't know if you know Joey. Do you know Joey?
Yeah, he's great.
Oh, okay. All right. So he spoke highly of you, and we had a podcast recently, him and I, and he spoke highly of you, and he quotes a lot of the things that you say and things, and he just wants to know how do you balance all the training that you do together, like into your life, like how do you make that balance?
Yeah, I just think scenario, kickboxing, clinch, ground, weapons. So if we do kickboxing, we have the hands and the kicks and all. I make sure I'm working my clinch, not just sport clinch, but Silat sort of clinch, or adding the eye gouges and throat grabs and all this sort of thing. So I just make sure for myself as I'm going through, I don't have an actual schedule, but almost every day, I do almost every bit. I use the weapons almost every single day. Most days I'll do some kickboxing. I'll work a little bit of clinch, even if I don't have a partner, and I'll work ground things. Then some days, for example, yesterday when Marcelo came over, we're here grappling and looking at things, over a period of time. And so I just did a little bit of kickboxing last night and a little bit of work. But anyway, the point being, scenario, which is not sport, where you're like, hey, what's going on, and dealing with that. Scenario, kickboxing, clinch, ground, weapons. That's how I make sure I just do all of that.
Nice. He'll happy to know that. And my last question from Sifu Ray McKinnon. He's an instructor out of Nova Scotia, Manimal Athletics. He has a JKD program over there, along with Muay Thai and MMA and all these things. He's an instructor under Guru Dan as well. And he runs the official Guru Dan and Santos fan club on Facebook. He has a question.
He does that. Awesome.
Yes, that's him.
I know of Ray, but that's great.
Yeah. So that's the guy. And I just came back from Nova Scotia, and I met him in person after all these years. But he has two Canadian friends that he asked me if you knew them. Philip Gelinas from Montreal, and Jean Medmont. I believe he was from Newfoundland, and he moved to California, and he still lives there, I think. And he trained in the Santos Academy. I just wanted to know if you knew these gentlemen.
I have no idea who those guys are. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So John Maidmont, I'll tell you how far back we go. Yeah. My very first seminar I ever taught anywhere was at a park in the LA area in Echo Park. And John happened to be in town, and he came to the seminar. So that was probably 1990 or something, or no, actually earlier than that. It's probably late 80s. Yeah. So I've known John. He's amazing. Last time was at the academy. He helped my daughter with some things and all. He's great. And then Philip was just here in January. We did a Dog Brother. It was February. We did a original Dog Brother seminar. It was Eric Noss, Top Dog, Philip Jelinas, Sled Dog, and myself, Huggy Dog. And we did a seminar. And yeah, I've known Philip, who is a phenomenal fighter and understands. I mean, just we're talking such a high level. So yeah, both of them are wonderful people who are just fantastic martial artists.
Go Canada.
Go Canada.
Awesome. Yeah, Ray would be happy to know these answers. Ted Wong, Dan Inosantos, Taki Kimura, Richard Bustillo, Jesse Glover. I heard all kinds of great things, but I also heard like there's all these differences and rivalries and this and that, and who's legit, who's not. And it drives me nuts when I hear all these things, because I love all those guys. I mean, I always look at the positives, but I just wanted to know what's your take on some of the buzz around these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am very thankful for all of them, because I've learned personally, of course, from Guru Dan, Larry Hartzell, Sifu Larry Hartzell, Sifu Richard Bustillo,
Yeah.
these people that actually trained with Bruce Lee, they all have so much to offer. And Ted Wong, Sifu Ted Wong studied with Bruce Lee and was at the end of the Chinatown era, which is amazing. That's Jun Fan JKD.
Yeah.
Now, Guru Dan actually taught that for Bruce Lee at the Chinatown school. So, what happens again, people get into these camps and like, oh, Guru Dan doesn't know what he's talking about. Inasano, he went off and started mixing Filipino martial arts in and all this sort of thing, and saying how he didn't teach Jun Fan JKD at his academy. It was all mixing up the concepts thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet they didn't live there and they didn't go to class at the academy.
Yeah.
And I did for years. And I learned Jun Fan JKD just straight, without any Filipino martial arts, without any Silat, nothing else in it, straight Jun Fan JKD from Guru Dan. Okay.
Right.
We'll have a lot of people in the JKD concepts saying, Ted Wong doesn't know what he's talking about. He is stuck in this thing and it's just this and it's not more. I mean, doesn't he realize it's using no way is way, having no limitation is limitation, da, 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 da. Ted Wong is such a phenomenal resource because that fighting art is phenomenal. I've learned so much from him, and I never got to train with him personally.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from him and from his students. We have a lot of students that thankfully are bringing things. So the point being, guess what? They all have so much to offer. Guru Dan, I believe, I mean, it's just true. Once it becomes about you, if you're not doing Bruce Lee's art and you go, I need to defend my family, well, you're not going to limit yourself to just what Bruce Lee did himself, which is exactly what he would tell you to do, I'm sure. There's so many of quotes of him saying, just use whatever works. Even in one of his movies, Return of the Dragon, it's like, hey, if it helps you in a fight, use it, right? But the point being, why not study with everybody? Why not, instead of going, they're no good, they're no good, yeah, again, use all of it. And I was just, Howard Williams, I was just studying him. Jesse Glover, so much to offer. So anyway, the point being, instead of separating it out, we should all just learn from all of them, be grateful for all of them. That'll make us all better.
Great answer. Great answer. I thought you'd get to that point too, because just from the way you think, you're always looking at the good, right? So,
Bruce, can I say one more thing about it?
Please.
Bruce Lee, the reason he developed so fast and all was because, guess what? He was a fighter. So what does a fighter want? A fighter just wants to become better at fighting, and you will use anything you can to become better at fighting. But once you become a stylist, I am this style, you care more about being in that style and protecting your style instead of saying, hey, what am I going to do to be my very best? So Bruce Lee was unlimited, clearly. Yeah. And there were certain things that a main approach that he used, which is brilliant. And I'm going to be putting out something on that definitely within the next year, maybe by the end of the year, a whole program on that itself, because it is genius. But yeah, we need to do everything. One last thing I want to say about JKD. Yes. Sometimes when we're doing MMA, doing jiu-jitsu and all, people say, JKD has nothing to do with sports. Zero to do with sports. Nothing. Okay, the application is outside the rules of sports. Correct. But let's see. The three main arts that Bruce Lee drew from were Wing Chun, which he used less and less of Wing Chun as he went on and on. Yeah. What are the other two main influences? Boxing and fencing.
Yeah.
Guess what? Boxing is a sport. Guess what? Yeah. Fencing is a sport.
Yeah.
And the reason, because it's actually contested. You go in, you put on equipment, and you actually try it out. Yeah, and you find out what you can do and what you can't do. Yeah. And that you know what to improve upon. So it's a beautiful thing for us all to evolve.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have time for a quick question or no? Or we got to go?
Okay, last one.
Okay, last one. UFC, Nate Quarry, Chris Lieben. You coached
Yes.
those guys, right?
I was Chris Lieben's head coach
Yes.
for 3 years.
Yes.
And I helped with Nate Quarry, and I never cornered him in fight, but I'm very good friends with him and all. Yes. So, the JKD experience helped them just improve. I was able to take from the JKD point of view and my fighting background and all the fighting and, training, helping to train Ensign and Egan for MMA and such. You go in, you have a different approach because you can break it down a little bit. You can analyze a fighter better, I think, because if you use Bruce Lee's 5 ways of attack, you don't just use them for fighting, but you, as a coach, you should watch your guys spar, the female spar person you're training, and you should say, are they using single direct, simple attacks? Are you using attack by combination? How about progressive indirect? Are they attack by drawing? Are they trapping, immobilization?
Yeah.
And you can analyze them and go, they're not doing this one. We have to bring that up. How's their mobility and such? So
diagnostic.
Yes, the JKD really helps for diagnostics. And thankfully, we got really, really good results.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciated this talk today. I appreciated your time. Before we go, is there anything that you'd like to talk, some closing thoughts, some promotional items that you want to get out there before we leave?
Well, jkdunlimited.com. We have a lot of programs for distance learning for people who don't have somebody in their area. But closing thoughts is, I'll give you a quote from one of my Silat teachers, Pinekar Paldetoirs. I think it's another guiding force. Be yourself, but be the best of yourself. Really don't limit yourself. Life brings enough honest. Don't fight yourself too. Don't add that in. Just go out there, constantly progress, help others to progress. Let's get rid of that insecurity and be happy to see people and happy to see others progress as well. Let's be happy for other people's success, and it helps us be successful ourselves.
Amazing. Thank you, Sifu.
Yes.
Really appreciate that.
What a pleasure, Chris. What a pleasure. I really appreciate what you're doing, Chris. You are really helping people to get a wider view, which means they're going to have a better life, right? Better martial arts life, actually, and be able to better defend themselves as well. So good for you. And
all right. All the best,
I better run. Okay. What a pleasure. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Have a good day.